The second strategy that I'd recommend you look at is presenting and speaking. So in other words, taking platforms that are offered to you and actively seeking platforms to present your ideas to an audience. And I use the word idea rather than just simply presenting a product or a service for a particular reason, which I'll come on to in a minute. But let's suppose that you say, well, that's all very well, Andrew, but I don't really, present very much. I don't need to in my business. It's not something that I actually like doing. But I'm going to put a few counter arguments to that. I think it's a fantastic opportunity. It's a wonderful opportunity to have a receptive audience and lots of receptive ears for what you have to say. And at the end of the day, we do fight very hard, don't we, to find people to listen to our message. So if you have something really insightful to deliver and you get good at putting it across, you'll be given more and more opportunities to win over people all in one go. And of course, many people say, well, I prefer to sell just over the table. That's where I'm more comfortable. But that's time consuming. You're only getting one at a time to listen to what you're saying. So better surely to be able to get 30 or 40 or 50 people to take in your message and hopefully win a few of those over in one go rather than just do it one at a time. I also think it's a great way of developing your own understanding of what you're actually offering in your product or service. Very often what you think you're offering the client is not what they think they're getting or not what they value. And their perspective is often different to yours as the provider. And it's really valuable when you start presenting your ideas to get some feedback from the audience on what they're taking in from your message, what they're valuing, and what they think is missing. So it's an educative experience for you as well in this process. And I think finally, if you get really good at this and you've got some brilliant ideas and some very insightful stuff to deliver, you're presenting value all the time to an audience, you'll get paid to do it. And what an amazing double whammy to be paid to market yourself. So let's get into this in a little bit more detail. I'm going to give you 5 tips on approaching this whole thing of standing up in front of an audience, delivering a message, maybe in a different way. So 5 tips, some things perhaps you haven't thought of before. The first is that I think it's important you have something to say. And that might seem an odd thing to mention, but what I mean by that is if you're just standing up and describing in bullet point form what it is that you do, then the chances are you're not going to engage your audience very much. They're going to be rather bored. They're not going to be particularly inspired. They're not going to think this is about us. There needs to be something more that you have to say. And what I'm proposing is that rather than presenting a product or a service, you present an idea. And the inspiration for this has come from TED Talks at TED.com. And TED Talks is the most extraordinary library of an online library of inspiring talks, all under the strapline of ideas worth spreading. It's a great strapline, isn't it? But what it's about is it's about people who realise that it's not just a case of presenting the details of what they do. There has to be an idea that sits over the top of that, that's actually more important, that's at a higher level of authority than just the details of what they do. So, for example, if you're offering some kind of service to the business community, it's important that you recognise that that service needs to exist for a reason, that there's some kind of pain or injustice or frustration out there that's felt by the people you're serving, and that it doesn't need to be there. And you've come along with a particular methodology, with a particular philosophy that's designed to overcome that problem in a way that other people aren't. And that's your central idea, that there is something out there that's wrong, the status quo is not right, it's not as it should be, and you think that you can do something about it, and you are doing something about it, and that's your idea. And then, of course, you can describe the way that you do it and get into a little bit more detail about how you do what you do. But at the outset, you've got a much more central premise, which is that there is a problem out there and that you are on a mission to fix it. And in that sense, you come across as being kind of heroic. In the eyes of people who have that problem or who recognize it and think it's also wrong, they see the world the way you see it, they're going to love you because you're speaking directly to their, not just their intellect, but also to their hearts. They feel the way that you do about that particular issue. So have an idea to communicate and not just, a thing or a product or a service. The second thing is it's important to be audience focused. And again, going back to that idea of PAL, you're talking about an issue, a pain, an injustice, a problem. And if the audience can identify with that, they're assuming or they're feeling that they're involved in what you're presenting. They feel part of it. They have a part to play in the story that you're telling. So from that point of view, they will be much more attentive. They'll lean forward like the guy in the picture here. And they will feel they're actually part of a conversation rather than just being presented at or to. It's really important to have a structure. And a nice simple structure would be this 5-stage process, which is first of all have a grabber. Open with something provocative, a statement of some kind, or an image, or maybe a story, or a prop, something which grabs people's attention, makes them think, oh gosh, this is interesting. Maybe doesn't reveal where you're going with it yet, hold something back. That's great because it keeps them attentive, it keeps them intrigued, and they're primed to want to know where you're going with this opening. And that's what I mean by having a link. You need to link it to your main idea. And that link phrase might be something like, and I mention this because. Okay, that's the bridge between your initial opening and the main thrust of your argument. And then you present your big idea, and then the key points will be supporting that idea. They might be some evidence, for example, some case studies, some research that's been done, some pieces in the media recently that highlight the main thrust of your argument. And then you'll pull all that together into a summary, so it sort of tidies everything up and reminds people of the journey that you've taken them on. And then you need a CTA. You need a call to action. It's great if you can move an audience from A to B, to take them on a journey, to persuade them of an idea. And then to leave them hanging with nothing to do is a missed opportunity. They want to know what their next step is. So give them something simple and specific to do at the end of your presentation, and then you're much more likely to get some action from them as a result. It's important to bring your idea to life, bring your presentation to life. And there are many, many ways of doing this. A great way to do it would be to tell really, really good stories. If you watch on TED Talks, a chap called Sir Ken Robinson, I think he gave a talk in 2006, which is an astonishing performance, which is littered with wonderful little anecdotes, and he's really, really good at telling them, and he weaves them into his conversation and his argument very, very cleverly. So he brings his proposition to life by doing that. It may be that you bring a prop on. Again, there's a wonderful lady called Jill Bolt Taylor who speaks on TED, and she's a neuroscientist. She's a medical professional, but she had a stroke. And she had a stroke, and she saw that stroke afterwards as an opportunity to tell the audience what it was like to have a stroke, and to tell that story from the perspective of a professional medical, a neuroscientist. It gave her a unique angle, and in doing so, in telling that story, not only did she bring it to life in that way, she also brought a brain onto stage. She had her rubber gloves on, and she actually picked this brain up, and you could tell the audience was going ooh and at the same time, but it really helped to grab their attention and to bring that particular message to life. You can do it with flip charts, you can do it with audience interaction, you can do it with questions, just to make sure that the message that you're getting across isn't just being delivered in a bland bullet point form. And finally, just practice. Do it more and more and more, and the more you do something, as in any skill, the better you'll get. And I've pictured here Tony Robbins, one of the world's most famous and successful motivational speakers. And Tony Robbins apparently gave 500 free talks when he was starting out in the speaking game before anybody paid him anything. And that was his apprenticeship. That's when he was learning his craft, and that's also when he was crafting his message. He was formulating his ideas, and in taking those platforms time and time again and feeding off what was coming back from the audience, he managed to hone his message and become incredibly successful. So just keep doing it and learn from every experience that you have of speaking on stage.